Welcome to On the Spectrum podcast. Today we are going to talk to Adam, who is designing an app to support families and professionals with ASD. So welcome. Thank you for coming today. Can you introduce yourself so our listeners can know who you are?
Yeah, sure. Great to be here. So my name is Adam Preis. I am the founder of a startup called Kinaptic. I've been working in a tech space for longer than I care to think, probably about 20 years. But I've also rolled out a number of digital offerings across the public sector, third sector, and the private sector. So I've been in the game for over 20 years, technology for the last 12.
Okay. So you're nothing related to neurodiverse or neurodivergent people or education. How you end up in this specific world?
It's a good question. So I guess my journey of Kinaptic is quite personal. I'm a father of a lovely daughter who's been diagnosed with ASD last year. And I just see how she's interacting with a learning system, how she's learning, not learning, what her strengths are. And I've come to find that a lot of neurodivergent children in mainstream settings, particularly in state or independent sector, they are expected at a certain age to embrace the one-to-many learning mindset. And the reality is that for the vast majority of them, they're not ready for cognitive load. And I think that needs to change. So I've been engaging quite widely with therapists, with parents, with teachers, drawing on my own experience to really understand how we can change that. So Kinaptic is really born out of that. So it's a personal mission as well as more than that. So.
Sorry, how old is your daughter?
She's 7. She's 7
7
now, yeah.
And at what age did you start, noticing struggles with communication and...
Or something was different?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we started noticing as the teachers, probably from the age of 4, that things were different. She's hyper functioning, so she really excels in some areas like cognition, expressive arts. Is very sociable, but actually when it comes to the more linear logical thinking patterns, that's where she kind of has a number of challenges. So we started noticing that something is different, and she's benefiting from private education, so she's always had a lot of care and attention, and the teachers and therapists that later came in to provide her with support didn't really share that insight as well as I think they could have. And it was really down to us as parents to understand that. And it wasn't really until she moved schools and started engaging with new therapists that had a different mindset that we started connecting the dots around her learning style, her learning patterns. Sorry, it's a long-winded response to you.
No, it's okay.
So what is Kinaptic? For people that are listening to us, Kinaptic, but what is this all about?
Yeah, so Kinaptic is an early stage venture, which is effectively aimed at helping to identify young children's learning state. It's aimed at neurodivergent children in the age 4 to 11, so key stage 1, key stage 2. And the idea is to enable them to be, to baseline their state, to understand whether they're ready for cognitive load learning or not, and then to be in this position where we can actually then regulate them to the right state so they can inform, they can proceed with the learning. So this is informed by occupational therapy evidence and research, in particular the sensory mode of engagement pattern. We know the pyramid, the occupational therapy pyramid around that. So we're trying to ensure that we baseline the children, we understand what state they're in, and then we route them. So we've got 4 states of baseline assessment, if you will: hyperactive, hypoactive, dysregulated, and ready. So if they're ready, they're able to proceed to their learning interaction. If they're hyper or hyperactive, we deploy a number of exercises to get into the state where they are. And if they're dysregulated, then we prompt parents to co-regulate, because we realize that effectively being in front of screens when you're dysregulated might not be the best thing, right? The key thing for Kinaptic as well was to really connect the insights between therapists, teachers, and parents. Okay. We've noticed from our research that there is a lot of disconnected engagement between those. therapists, SLTs and OTs try the best they can to get the best insights. So do teachers in a limited time, and so do we as parents to understand how to navigate that. But these insights are not really connected. So what Kinaptic tries to do is to really build out what we call a learning profile of each learner, and to connect those insights into a holistic mode of interaction, to enable that child to actually thrive in the right setting and to be able to engage with the learning in a more personalized fashion.
Okay.
I know you have sent a survey to, parents with children neurodivergent. What have been the findings or the most interesting in this survey? What information have come up that you were like, I didn't realize that, or I didn't expect that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So the first thing to say is that we've had a really good uptake of that survey. A lot of parents have a lot of concerns. And again, this is both in state and independent sector around this. We've had over 60 people respond to that survey in the short time that we've been canvassing for insight. And we find that 80% of those canvassed, so all the parents that have neurodivergent children in that age bracket, they're really concerned about their children's ability to regulate and be able to maintain focus and attention when engaging with education. And particularly, we're finding that this is an issue, particularly around the age of the child going from year 2 to year 3, when we're moving from more of a kind of a less structured learning model to a more structured academic pedagogy. And so 80% of parents have concerns around their children's learning patterns. 75% of parents have concerns around their ability to regulate their emotions. And we're also finding that parents have a lot of concern around screen time, which is really interesting, because you could say, well, it's a kind of maybe a clash. Why are you developing something that's a digital offering when parents have screen time concern? And our philosophy here is that really Kinaptic is there to augment what the teachers, therapists, and parents are doing to connect that, and to do so in short bursts, right? To ensure that they're not in front of screens for a long period of time. So look, those surveys have been quite fundamental, but everybody who's answered the survey is eager to get their hands on an early version. We're building that now. A minimal viable product, MVP, should be available hopefully over the next 4 to 6 weeks. And we'll be making that available to what we call our Kinaptic Founding Families, which are part of that process. But beyond the parents, we also surveyed a wide range of occupational therapists, speech and language therapists. We had conversations with Senkos, with teachers, with deputy head teachers in schools, and they all see that there is a gap in the market, particularly at that younger age. So we're talking about 4 to 11. There's much wider array of offerings available in the market for older children who are neurodivergent. But this is a really critical time, and this is where I come back to my personal experience. First of all, knowing that there is something different in how your child learns and interacts and behaves, but then being able to think about, well, I need to get them diagnosed. And we as parents have this presumption. Once we get them diagnosed, we know what to do. Incorrect.
No, we don't.
No, we don't. We know less. The more we know, the less we know.
Yeah, we're even more lost.
Now you have a paper that it says something.
Exactly.
That says a word.
And nobody really knows what to do. And so this age is really critical, because parents have a lot of anxiety, uncertainty, and lack of knowledge in this space. In most cases, they have the ability to get some support, but how is that connected? How does the interaction that I'm having with my daughter's occupational therapist and SLT, how does that feed into how she's taught in class? How does that feed into how we're teaching her in the school settings? And right now, that's completely disconnected. I can draw on one example here, and I'm drifting from your question a little bit, but
no. The podcast, like I say, is we send some questions for guidance, and we find out, because normally the guests ask for it, so that is why we start creating like some questions. But no, we believe that the podcast should be just a conversation.
And really, we will find what you are saying is being a discussion in this table more often than you will think. Right. So even when we are from an SEN setting, we are really used to work with parents that you start talking to them in a more one-to-one conversation, in a more personal, they will come with I get really lost. First I was lost because I didn't know what was happening, and I know something was weird, different, something wasn't as it should be. That's how it felt. Then I start asking questions, finding the answers, and when I've got the answer, I'm back to square one, because it's like, yeah, that's fine, okay, ASD, autism, whatever title you want to put in there, and now what? And what that means, and what I need to do as a parent. So that you were saying is actually really common, and then we had those conversations either here in the podcast table or outside when you talk to parents, like, and now what? Like, what this means?
What do we do? Yeah.
So you were going to say something about your daughter.
Yeah, no, the thing that really, I guess as a parent, I find very frustrating is that I know for a fact that my daughter has what I like to call superpowers. And
cool.
what's really frustrating is that those superpowers are not recognized. Like, we as parents recognize them, maybe her therapist does, but you get these reports back and they're completely underutilized. So unless we as parents take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and recognize them and nourish them in those spaces, but it's very difficult to do that when the child spends 40 hours of their time outside of school settings, unless you choose to home educate your child, which we don't personally think for us is a good idea. For some people it might be. You're not really in touch with what's going on. And surely we live in a world right now where the technology exists to do this, where we can have a look up to how a child is interacting, what the learning pattern is. I'll give you an example here. One day we got our homework folders back home every Thursday, as we do, and we got the maths questions, and my daughter doesn't like maths too much, and it's the same sheets being sent every week. Here is the timetables multiplication, here are the fractions expressed as numbers, and she just doesn't like it. And I know for a fact that if you present that information to her in a visualized format, she'll get it, and she gets it. So why is it that every week we're sending the same sheets back home every week? If the teacher knows that her learning profile for mathematics is unique, is different, is visualized, non-linear, then surely we should be in a position to change and adapt that. Now, I know that's difficult in a state sector when you have 30 plus kids in a classroom and the teacher's struggling to stay on top of things, but we should be able to do that better. So for me, Kinaptic is not something that replaces human interaction. It's really something that augments that interaction and enables us, as our motto describes, to help to find those and unlock those learning superpowers. Equally, at the same time, find those challenging areas where we need to, support them through that kind of integrated kind of package of support.
It can be a guidance for like what we were speaking, parents that don't even know where to start. We have last week that interview was saying exactly what you were saying. The first thing she said, I was 18, I think she mentioned, when I got the autistic diagnosis from my child. I didn't know what was autism myself. Like, she was like, okay, I have a diagnosis now, but what do I do with this? So
and to be fair, from not to say or find excuses, like to understand how the landscape presents itself as a professional. Know that not every teacher that is in a school means what autism means, and means what autism implies, and means how the children learn, or the learning stage that they have, on how to face those difficulties. Plus, because we are really a specialist in what we do, even in my case, when I did teaching in Spain, I did SEN teaching. So you have lots of things that are related to autism, learning difficulties. So you are specialized in that. But when you are doing primary teaching as a specialist, you don't do that. And then even when you talk to your colleagues, they're like, they briefly talk about what all of this is. We don't know. We haven't seen a really difficult child or something that goes out of the line of what a mainstream school should look like. And they are really lost in how to face these things. Plus, they have 25 children to attend with 25 different profiles, and it's becoming really difficult, sometimes even with not the support that they should have in the class. So not defending them, but I think this will be amazing in terms of there is your information. This is what you need. If this route is not working, maybe you need to try this one. But sometimes you need to go and try an error. Like, let me try this, it doesn't work. Let me try this, it doesn't work. Let me try this, it doesn't work. And then someone needs to come and say, this is what you need to try. Stop losing your time finding the way. I found it for you. Off you go. Then definitely, I mean, as a teacher, I would say, if you're seeing that child hasn't done this 3 times, maybe you need to change. I would say that. And it's our job. My job as a teacher is, if the child doesn't understand this way, I need to find another way. And yes, maybe I will need to start trying what way. For us, it's easier because we have 4. For the ones that they have 25, that becomes a little bit more challenging, but still you need to carry on that. So I think that will be really handy, especially how things are changing in terms of how the changes that the government wants to do in schools. Because we're talking about inclusion and more children come in with those difficulties. So the teachers at the moment, probably they're a little bit scared of what's happening and what's coming. And sometimes because what's coming is the unknown. And they come with a blank piece of paper. See, yes, they come the EHCP, but not always is the information that I need to start working on. So I need the Senko in between, mediating. This means this, maybe in class you need to do here and there. But I think UAB will play a really nice game in that as a tool to say...
Connecting everything. Connecting all the dots, like what
learning,
we do at the school.
This is the learning profile. This is what I need to do. So I don't need 300 people, 3 meetings, like all of that will reduce to, there you go, off you go. And then everybody will be connected, yeah.
What we do at the school with the child is, for example, Lorena is one of the teachers of the house. It will be the teacher with the therapist, with the care manager, and they will do a plan. So I think in some kind of way you will be doing what we do at the school in person, but in an app, have all those specialists there, all that information, so you can actually connect it and see it. And then a plan is easier to see when you see it in that way. No, I'm understanding wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I still to your point about this. We as parents, we still have, we have very, very talented and very incredible occupational therapists and SLTs who've worked with our daughter, and we're still having stuff emailed. Hoping the teacher picks it up before class planning, not knowing if it's actually used and implemented into learning, and this is an independent school, by the way. So if that's happening in a good independent school, what's happening in the state sector, right? So this is a simple, information exchange piece. But the one piece that you picked up on, the changes that have been proposed in the UK in legislation, it was also featured in the King's speech in Parliament earlier this week around the changing SEND framework. I think what's really interesting about it, because in principle these sound like very good changes. But then if you start looking under the hood, and I'm not a therapist or a teacher, but just as a citizen, I look at the higher thresholds for EHCP requirements. I look about those integrated plans underneath, and actually, if we don't get the integrated plans done well, then there is a risk that a whole bunch of neurodivergent children will be left out, and they will not get access to support and to SLTs and OTs and that integrated support. I was actually discussing that with one of our advisory occupational therapists, and she said to me this week, this presents a unique opportunity and need to create that additional layer of interface. Maybe for kids that don't qualify for the EHCP threshold, how can those therapists interact with parents and teachers in a kind of closed, secure environment? And how can we learn? And the other thing as well is that, it's not like you learn about your children's learning patterns once. It evolves, right? Where my daughter is now will probably not be where she'll be in 2 years' time. So this has to be an evolving dynamic kind of intelligence.
That's what you said before in terms of why things are working well, and when they change to that kind of between key stage 2 and 3, all of a sudden being focused is a difficulty, self-regulating themselves is a difficulty, but it wasn't a difficulty 2 years ago. So it's like, is it like it was, or is it because how the structure wasn't making that to be a difficulty? Because we're like maybe that less structure, less demanding, maybe. I don't know. I'm asking you like why you think that is a change in the same way I'm reflecting with you. Why do you think that is a change that now we need to focus on that? Meanwhile, it wasn't before.
I think there's probably, neurological evidence and research that would suggest why, as the brain develops, is one thing. But there's also, the young individuals developing socially, developing in an environment, right? I can see this with my daughter and many of her friends who I know also neurodivergent. Once they've conquered something, they want to move on to something else. And it's about attention, interest. There's such a multitude of factors here that are in play that it's really difficult to keep on top of, and that evolves as they get older and as the environment changes. And one day they like, I don't know, painting. The next day they like building something, right? So how can you introduce learning into some of those applied experiences? Like, for example, my daughter, she's quite expressive, creative. She's a really good singer. She learns for singing. I actually found that she can learn mathematics for singing, would you believe? It's those things that you talked about, trial and error. But once you've tried it, where does it go into? It goes into a dark well somewhere. If we can record that and enable that information, that insight to those who are involved with that young person, all of a sudden it creates opportunities.
Yeah. And do you think as well that the system is becoming more rigid? Because if you think about reception year 1, year 2, they're still quite playing, the environment is really open, they kind of respect the children's time. So like you will understand that a 3, 4, 5-year-old needs to stand up and go there and come back. So that's a self-regulation, because even myself, when I'm sitting there, I cannot sit down here. I need to kind of self-regulate myself. I will move the feet, I will move the chair. You wouldn't tell me off because I'm doing that, but I need to do that. I cannot stay still like all the time. The children do the same. The little they are, the more they need to, the movement needs to be bigger. But some of the children, as they grow, they still need to have that movement to self-regulate themselves. And what we're asking them is to stay sitting down in the chair, concentrated, but I cannot concentrate, you let me move. So I think as well, even the environment is getting more rigid, and that's why that affects our neurodivergent children, because the environment doesn't meet the needs. And I think it's good to tell the teachers, when a child is moving like that, doesn't mean there's not paying attention to you. It means that to pay attention to you needs to move like that, or needs to bounce in the ball, because that helps his brain to be concentrated like towards you. Does it make sense what I'm saying here? So I think your app will bring that information and make it something like it's part of the what we call the risk assessment behavior super guidelines a lot on. Is in written that the child needs to bounce in the back to pay attention to the teacher. And because it's written, it's actually like, okay, there you go, I understand. And it's working for you parents, it's working for the speech and language therapist, and it's working for the teacher. So probably the teacher will be like, so let him move, because I need him to move, to pay attention. And I'm just putting a quite simple, straightforward example. As I'm collaborating and helping some Spanish teachers, and we are having these conversations, because they are already in that inclusion line in the sector in Spain, but they are finding these difficulties that we are bringing to the table. And they are finding that writing it down helps other teachers to understand. Because the ones that we are in the sector in terms of SEN, we are really familiarized with this. It's really natural for us that a child needs to be moving or standing, or needs to go there and come back 30 times. And maybe we need to break down the task in 30 steps because I need to move 30 times. But mainstream school, they are really like, oh, it's really disruptive. I can't carry on. It's like, it doesn't do it on purpose. It does it because it needs to do it. And I'm being really extreme in that way, but like for people to understand what we are saying. So I think it will be such a good tool to put in there, and then help those professionals to understand how things are.
And there's another thing as well I want to add here. So for me, again, because I'm personally invested in this, and for my interactions with my daughter and the families that we interact with and therapists we're interacting with, we're not just looking to build another app. And there's a lot of solutions that are flooding the market right now. And I think now with the explosion of vibe coding tools and generative AI, that's going to grow exponentially. For me, what's really key with Kinaptic is to have that evidence base, to have the co-design with parents, to have the co-design with therapists. But once you have that, I'm envisaging to build what I call Kinaptic labs. So a space where you can have academic researchers, practitioners, therapists, look at this data, pseudonymized data, make sense of it. And what does that mean at population level? What does that mean for how we are structuring our curricula, our pedagogy. And I really want to create a kind of, or contribute towards a movement that really challenges policymakers, challenges educators, all of us who are involved and have a stake in this, to really rethink how we are interacting with them. Now, a lot of people say to me, you're absolutely crazy. What, you proposing to change how education works? No, but I think we'll need to do better. And I think technology is going to open things up completely. So Kinaptic is a value kind of based kind of mission to help us to achieve that, really.
But
so.
I don't think that challenge is so crazy. We by now, like we were speaking about, by now we realize the way we're educating our children is kind of the same system. But like you say, we all don't learn in the same way. So we cannot teach everybody in the same way, because it will work from some children, but from some people, it will not. Actually, even now, me as an adult, if you ask me to sit 10 hours and listen to someone to learn, I don't learn that way. So I will not. My mind will go somewhere else. You will be like Nairobi. I was like, oh yeah, sure. Because it's just not the way my brain process and absorbs information. So I think making that available, that are different systems. I have this story about a teacher with ADHD. So this kid with ADHD used to tap his feet. He needed it, like you say. He was hyperactive. He needed to make the noise, but of course it was very distracting for the rest of the class. So the teacher used to ask the kid to remove himself from the classroom because he was being disruptive. So it came another teacher, a teacher that, in my opinion, was a better teacher, because what she's doing with removing him of the classroom, she's stopping him from learning. So this teacher came and took a box and wrapped it with like a blanket, let's say, and put it under the children's feet. So this didn't sound. He kept doing what he wanted to do or what he needed to do, didn't interrupt anybody, and he was learning. So for me, it's just thinking a little bit outside of the box. It's coming with different kind of solutions that work for both. We cannot be so square. We need to bend a little bit.
But I think to be able to do these things, we need to constructively challenge. So I think that the technology and the AI is already going to challenge ourselves, either we like it or not anyway. But I think it is good that there are people that still challenge even more. Like, why are we doing this like this? Why we cannot do it differently? And then it's forcing us to think out of the box. Otherwise, and I think that's evolution, is it? Like, we will be as we were centuries ago. So, like, to go forward, you need to say, wait there. Why are we doing this like that? This is not working. And actually, we evoluted because people think in a different way at some point, somewhere. It's like, wait there, we can do this like that. And then, oh yeah, and everybody go that way. So I think, thank you for that. And yeah, it will come anyway. So you mentioned that before. When we talk about, so we're talking about now, we're talking about screen time. And then this is as well something that as parents, probably three of us, a conversation that all the parents have. They will spend lots of time in the screens, we as an adult, and our children, and we are creating an app. How we can balance this, and how would you say that is positive for your app?
Yeah, so there's a, first of all, the principle is with Kinaptic is that we have short bursts of screen time. And very importantly, not controlled by the child, but controlled by the parent. So the parent is the key decision maker. Particularly at this age, that's really important. Not the teacher, not the therapist, the parent. So short bursts, and we have, session timers that, stop a session after it's elapsed a certain time. But also, there's so many data points that you can look at in how a child is interacting with a device. Now, that might be, in the first instance, by looking at an iPad, how they tap, how hard they tap, how frequently they tap, what the correlation in those patterns. All of a sudden, if you build that into kind of, an algorithm, you start getting a sense of, if they're spending too much time on a device, too little time on a device. Have they gone from being ready to being hyperactive? Is the interaction too busy for them? Is it too cluttered, right? So it's all about this notion of adaptive learning and regulation patterns. So once you are able to figure that out, and a lot of people say, well, there's AI for that. In my MVP, I'm not using AI. I'm using basic logic. But at scale, you would use machine learning. You would use AI to make sense of that, right? So you can introduce those kind of timers. But also, there's also an opportunity that I'm exploring for the future around integrating sensory devices into the experience. So imagine if you interact with a screen, you might be deemed to be, I don't know, in a state of dysregulation. You're doing some co-regulation with your parent. Then you have some fidgets. Then you have some devices. It could even be sensors around the room, right? A lot of people say, well, I'm really concerned about my child being monitored. But as long as that data is constructed and managed in a completely abstracted way and secured, and it's privacy by design, by default, then we shouldn't be stopping that. So there are things that in the future we'll be able to do. And with the advent of IoT devices and sensor technology, you could integrate that. And that's another data point that gives you greater proximity and indication of where the child is responding, where they're not responding, how they're struggling. So that's the one thing I would say in relation to screen time. But I also think on the flip side, we can't just presume that technology doesn't exist, right? Our children live in an age of technology. They give us extra data, extra insights. So it's a question of how we use that. And the thing as well, in relation to AI, as I mentioned, there is a whole movement towards, integrating AI into mainstream education. I know a lot of people looking at this from a kind of neurodivergent perspective as well. And that's great, but it's got to be done the right way, particularly in the age of agentic AI, where we're giving autonomous remit to agentic AI entities to be able to act on our behalf. Now, when you think about this in education, when you think about this in neurodivergent learning, you cannot give agentic AI and AI agents autonomous access to what's happening to your child's. So you have to introduce the right parental controls. And as we in the technology world, we call this the human in the loop paradigm. So if you just develop a closed loop and you give that to a user and that user uses the system, you have no control. But if you co-design a solution, if you create those human in the loop controls for parents, teachers, and therapists, all of a sudden you're getting the best of technology without being subservient to technology. And by no means are you replacing the human interaction. What if the technology can prompt you to stand up with your mom and do presses against wall because you're in a dysregulated state, or jumping jacks, or whatever the exercise might be. And what if that parent can then say to us, that didn't work, but this really worked. So imagine if you can then share that insight with the therapist and the teacher. All of a sudden, you're creating this closed loop. So for me, I get the screen time debate, but I think just to kind of put our blinkers on and say, well, because of screen time concerns, we're not going to use technology, it's not an option.
Well, I think it depends. I think everything has duality, everything has positive and negative. So, for example, my daughter, since she was very little, 5, 4, something like that, I have teach her yoga. He's actually a English yoga teacher or channel in YouTube that is called Cosmic Kids that I love since I was in South Africa. I didn't even knew that she was English, but funny enough, when I moved to this country, I managed to bring her to the London school and I met her, so it was so exciting for me. But Bella spent hours, watching the videos. But I will say, my child, she's very emotional intelligent. And I think it was that base. I think from very little she doing yoga, she learning breathing techniques, and she gave her those tools that to self-regulate herself now. So yes, she spent a huge amount of time on the phone, but what are you doing while you are on your phone? Yes, if she was scrolling to Instagram or YouTube or something like that, I will say yes, 100%. But if they are learning, I don't think it's that.
I think you said something really important, especially because when you have little children, and then something that we do in school is you cannot calm someone down if you are not calm yourself. I think you connect, and I think our children, for their nature, they connect with like what the sense is, how you behave, how you present. And I think having like little children are the same. It's like I cannot say to my toddler, calm down. If I'm like, calm down, like, you know.
Shouting.
Yeah, like, or even to another, like I cannot say, calm down, you need to calm down. At some point, it's like, I'm going to punch you in the face in a minute. Because you are even getting me even higher and higher. But probably because we are professionals, we are in that level, we understand when you're talking, we need to co-regulate. But some parents face really difficult situations at home when a child is dysregulated. And then it's like, you are tired, it's 24/7, you don't know what to do, because I am a professional, I've got all the tools that I'm not expecting every single parent listening out there having as I do, because I have them because I am a professional. So when you are having a screen, options are giving it to you tailored to your child, and say, actually, when your child is like that, these ones are the options that you are going to do. It's going to help you out to co-regulate, but also to build a positive relationship with your child, because you know that what you're going to do is going to be effective. And this is translated in the most raw and pure sense of what we are talking, is probably what we see a lot on. Because our children build those relationships with us when they go through those dysregulated moments, and they have someone that is there, like unconditionally helping them to go through, and we know what to do. So you're gonna replicate more or less a system like, wait there, when your child is doing this, means that he's dysregulated. Even it's starting like, when he is starting looking like that, you may be worth it to start doing some press-ups or deep pressure, or let's do some jumping, because even you can prevent this full dysregulation situation, because you are getting things in earlier stages. Would you think that that would work? Does it make sense what I'm saying?
100%. And that's what we hope to do. You know, in early designs, we have these, when a child is dysregulated, there'll be prompts for parents. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? And then the parent would say, I've tried that, it didn't work. So we can log that as well.
There you go. So not in this profile, we need to look for other options.
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. So, and I just, to your point there about, you know, parents being in the right state of mind, we all know we're humans as well, right? I mean, you're specialists, so you have more knowledge and more frameworks and tools to work, but you're humans as well. We all have states where we're like, oh gosh, I can't do this right now. So parents are looking for ways to help them regain control in those difficult moments, you know.
But you're a human being, like it's what you said. We are, and we consider even in a school that it's easier for you to retaliate as a professional when you are burnt out. So that's why we work with our staff to, when you are getting anxious, when you see yourself increasing that anxiety, that stress, you need to say, I need to have a 10, I need to go, because that there is an element of retaliation that gets higher and higher, which is what we don't want to. When you are a parent, you don't have the luxury to say, I need a minute. Sometimes, as parents, you can say, like, with your wife, with my husband, like I say, I had enough, it's your turn, off you go. But sometimes you're on your own. There's no one there. What you do? You lock yourself in the toilet. It's like, you say to your child, dysregulated, I need 10 minutes, wait, I need to go breathe and come back. I mean, we laugh because it's like, that's the reality that some parents face. And they tell you, like, when they come to London, like, I sometimes it's too much and I need to go. And we understand why it becomes too much. I've got people close to me that say, like, sometimes it's difficult, and then, like, what you do? I can't say, I need 10 minutes out and then wait there, or wait that you have your dysregulation moment. I need 10 minutes to self-regulate myself, and then you can carry. You cannot do that. Like, we have that luxury because we have many people around. But I think it will be good when you are on your own in those moments to say, I need a solution and I need it quickly, or otherwise we are going to start escalating.
And what we were saying as well, technology is here. Pretending that doesn't exist is not going to help anyone. Pretending that our children are going to have the same childhood that we have it's not going to happen because they have access and technology have grown massively in the last 30 years. I was playing with Barbies in the park with my, it was completely different to the scenario that I see now with my daughter and her friends talking about, skincare routines. And I'm like, I wasn't aware of what it was a skincare routine when I was 10. I'm 100% sure of that. So I think embracing technology in a positive way. For example, AI, we have an interview with an AI specialist in education and Zen. And, applying AI for social stories, because, of course, now with the AI, you can make the person in the social story to look like the child, so they can identify, like you say, for example, your daughter loves singing. He shows this app where you can put, I want to make a song about brushing my teeth or about tying my shoes.
You can put the timetables and he creates a song with the timetables.
You're going to have to tell me what it is, because
okay. But that is what I'm saying. And he was saying, yes, we can teach him how to tie their shoes with a song that for some children, they will absorb that like this. So it's using AI kind of in a positive way to help us connect in a more direct way with the children. So it help the communication and make it a little bit more effective. Yeah.
I think it's very interesting. I'll have to listen to that episode when it's published. But we are at the dawn of a new age. And I work in right now, even though I'm founding Kinaptic, I still have my corporate job, and I see in the world that a lot of the investments in AI are not necessarily going in the right place. Right? I think it's really incumbent on those who are innovating in this space to create a strong evidence base and to create strong evidence of efficacy and impact. And that should, in my view, warrant investors to invest in this. Let's face it, this stuff is not built for free. To do it properly, you need time, you need resources, you need investments. So for me, it's really important, and as I'm sure it is for other people who innovate in this space, to really prove that AI could be used to address the real challenges that we face. And I don't just mean supporting children who might have challenges, but also recognizing their superpowers and then ensuring that they have the right onward pathway in their life to really thrive and really capitalize on those opportunities. And again, I work in the software world, and I see that, a lot of neurodivergent people, young people, and then, people who enter the workforce, they have such amazing talents when it comes to creating code, to working and developing solutions, completely different way of looking at things. But we need to activate that. And it starts at that young age.
Very true. And then we need to give the tools to those ones that they are working with them to unlock that power.
Right.
Because you can have the superpowers, but if I am not able to unlock them, your superpowers kept locked, and they will keep locked for a really long time. I need to have the tools to click you out and say, here we are, that's the child.
100%.
So that's, I think, and that will work in both ways. Because definitely they are, and they can shine out there if we manage to push them through all the system till they are an adult.
Because
So
it's a system that is not designed to them. So actually our first episode of this podcast was Andy Reddy. He's a neurodivergent coach. But he does it for business owners. So because, if you're autistic, maybe, you need some tools to learn how to talk to your employees and, like you say, to have that motivation to finish projects. So he helps them, with the conductual side of it. And I think if I remember the name of the episode, is something identifying your superpowers or something like that. That is how we frame it. I'm neurodivergent myself. I'm ADHD. So, for example, I can hyperfocus. I can work in one scene for 8 hours. If my interest is there, if I'm excited about it, I will not even remember to eat or go to the bathroom. My mind will just zoom in something, and I will don't even realize how many hours have been until I finish that project because I'm excited about it.
But I think one thing that listening to you guys is when we put the label, sometimes we put a barrier. And then it's like we put the lock into that superpowers box to say that pictures. I like that because it's like this. And then what we need to do, and they carry on with that padlock lock. And then we're asking the teachers, you need to open it, but they don't have the key, or they don't know where it is sometimes either. And then I think with our children that are more complex, that's the level of difficulty. Where is the padlock? And then you start looking for the padlock. Sometimes we need to tell the teachers, and I think that what your app will do. This is the padlock, this is the key, this is how it works, the superpowers. This child can do this child can do that. And then it's funneling that and make them thrive throughout their time in school. And then realizing in the companies when they are adults that it's not a label, it's a superpower.
Exactly.
Because you need those people tomorrow in those companies. Because how they think is what you need. Because they have another way to think. They have another way to see the world. And this is what you need. So it's changing the focus on, instead of putting a label and a padlock, is giving a key to that padlock and say, this is your superpower.
And key to that, I think, is, this kind of putting in a more positive label on neurodivergence. Neurodivergence is a good thing. It's a natural thing. Yeah. The universe, the world has given it to us for a reason, right? Yeah. We've got to embrace it. And I think you see over the last 20, 30 years, research and, social policy evolve in this space. But we're just at the beginning of this, and so it's how can we work together across those, disciplinary lines, collaborate, leverage technology in an appropriate way, responsible and safe and privacy-preserving way to further that discourse.
It's the perspective. I think it's the perspective how you see things. If you see it and frame it in a positive way, it will be seen and perceived as a positive way. For example, I will never say that I have a disability because I don't believe I have one. Even I'm an ADHD. I think we need to realize that we all have superpowers. Neurodivergent or non-neurodivergent, we all have things that we exceed and we're really good at it. And other people have other things. So if we work collaborative, we don't expect someone to be good or a genius at everything. And we realize, maybe you're really good at this, but I'm really good at this. So this is your superpower and you go and exceed at that. And this is my superpower and I go and exceed at that. We make a great team. Because I don't need to be good at everything. I need to be good at what I really, really do well.
But then I guess, the challenge here is that there's a certain age and, I'm seeing that as a parent now, entering year 3, examinations, academic benchmarks, academic standards. You've not attained the academic standard that we're requiring you to do. What does that do to lock that person in that box that you say? And how more complex is that key then to unlock it? We have a responsibility to address this as parents, as educators, as therapists, as all people in this space. What we currently have is not good enough anymore. It needs to be challenged.
It does.
It does. I agree with you.
Definitely. So what's your vision for the app?
So right now we're early stage. I'm very glad to announce that we've been selected to be part of the King's College Startup Accelerator program, which is a huge achievement. So we're starting that.
Congratulations!
Thank you very much. We're starting that at the end of June, and we're currently building our first MVP or minimal viable product, which is our first prototype that we'll be making available to our Kinaptic Founding Families cohort. So the idea is that, in the next 6 to 8 months, we'll be able to refine, co-design with parents and therapists and teachers. And I'd like us to be in a position where we could then move to an academic backed pilot. And I'm having conversations, not just with the King's community, but elsewhere as well to explore that. Because I think we'll need independent assessment of what we are doing. That's really critical, not just to build trust with parents, but also to build trust with schools. And in the short term, we'll be entering a market for a kind of a B2C channel. We're using talking as marketers here. So effectively making this available to parents. But we realize that for this to scale and for the mission and the vision to challenge the existing current state, that we're going to have to pursue the B2B channel, which is effectively engaging with schools, engaging with school federation, engaging with different educational and therapeutic institutes to be able to actually say, you know what, this can be rolled out at scale. So I've already started having some conversations with deputy head teachers, with school federations around this. There's interest in co-design and developing solutions. So that's the road. And for me, you know, I'm not going to be ashamed to say this is something that needs to be able to secure capital and to be able to be functioning business, right? So I'm not creating a charity, I'm creating a business that functions, that delivers impact for our children and users. But we hope that will put us in a good position to raise capital and investments and to scale this, not just in this country, but in Europe and the rest of the world.
So what advice would you give to parents, professionals and people that are hearing us today?
I think I would say from my perspective as a parent is to keep connected and to keep open to different perspectives that teachers, therapists, parents and anybody who else is involved with child have. But I think from my perspective as a technologist, I would say that the key opportunity here is to say that there are solutions out there, and if there isn't anything out there, then we should be, you know, demanding that these solutions are developed. So participating and collaborating with people who want to change the paradigm, you know, is really critical. So I would invite any parents who might be listening to this, if they want to be part of the Kinaptic Early Founding Families process, then I'm very open to do that, because co-design is important. We have to work together to design these solutions.
That was going to be my next questions. If you want something from the audience, if you want participation, if you would like someone to fill your survey, we can even put a link to it. So yeah, I was going to say, if someone is hearing you and wants to participate, how they can help you.
Yeah, thank you so much. No, I guess, yeah, you're right. So we do have that survey still running to capture insights, so that'd be great. But I think for anybody who wants to be more deeply involved and get their hands on the first prototype when it becomes available, like I said, we have that Kinaptic Early Founding Families system that we're setting up now, process. So it gives you opportunity to get your hands on and feedback and say, you know what, this is working, this is not working. And that's really what it will take for us to develop something that is meaningful and valuable and drives the outcomes that we want to drive.
So we will put your details on the description. So if someone wants to contact you directly, they can.
What profile are you looking for? Or that will be handy. So what profile of parents or families are you looking for?
Yeah, so our kind of cohort is parents who suspect that the child may be neurodivergent or haven't had diagnosis, but in the age of 4 to 11. So that's the category that we're primarily focused on. So the early stage.
Okay, that's fine. So as a final thought, if you wouldn't send a message to our listeners, what that would be?
I think I used some of your analogies because they were so good. I think, look, I think unlocking neurodivergent learning superpowers is going to happen. It's just a question of time. I think that, you know, technology collaboration between therapists, teachers and parents is critical in that. And if you put that all together, you create a hybrid learning experience and you create insights that enable you to really unlock those learning superpowers. And I think, you know, my message here is that we're in it together, and this is an exciting journey, and we're gonna get to our destination together.
I think it's let's keep finding that key.
Exactly.
Let's keep finding the key.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you for today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.